Well, I owe you some long overdue updates on the Jeep. It's now after my deadline from this series, which, if you remember, was a 7 weeks to complete this Jeep and get it to the Mason Dixon show. I was able to successfully do that, and we're back home now. But unfortunately, in order to get that done, I had to stop filming, put away the camera and the lights, and just get cracking on this thing. So it's the week after now, and things are calming down. I really haven't touched the Jeep since I got home, so I apologize it took me so long to get this video to you. So let me show you some of the completed things I did on the Jeep since my last video. Then I'll show you some clips from the show, and we'll go from there. So again, thank you for your patience, and here's where we're at present day. So here is what it looks like. This is the state it was in when I took it to the show. I'm happy to report we drove it each day of the show on the convoy and around Gettysburg, and it ran great. I didn't have any major issues with it. There's a few things I'm going to work on over the next couple of weeks or through the winter to kind of button everything up and finish it and work out a few little kinks. But overall, I was super happy with it. I got the front fenders on and installed. I have the fenders drilled for flares just because of how far the front tires stick out, but I probably won't run them all the time. That's more just for street purpose, to keep the Jeep clean, and also to, you know, around here, you're supposed to have your tires covered, but we'll just see how that goes. These are the MB headlight buckets and swing over brackets from Willys, and I also fitted them with their MB GPW LED light kit, so I'll show you how that works here in a second. Inside the dash I have a little switch here. This is an aux beam headlight harness, and I just used that with the Willys light kit. So the red light is low beam, green light is high beam, and I'm also running the Willys CJ2A LED panel light. So I haven't driven it at night yet, but I can tell you these things are bright. So that's on low beam, and then high beam illuminates both elements. Since I drive this thing on the street, turn signals around here are a must. So that was something I needed to have done for the show, are the lights. So I had to have brake, tail, and turn, and I did get that done. This is a really cool switch from Willys. I love the illuminated lever on it. And then these LED headlights have a halo style turn signal ring. You can also wire this so that it's a driving or parking light. It's a solid white, and then when you turn the turn signal on, it blinks. So I was really happy with how those turn out. And then that leaves the lower space. You could have a parking light. The original blackout or little blackout parking light was in there, and then a military Jeep would have had the big blackout light on the fender, but we don't need that. The Jeep had about 20 miles on it when I put it on the trailer, so I really hadn't had a chance to try out these tires too much, but they worked great. So they're big and knobby, but I would say they make about the same amount of noise as the NDTs I've been running. I'm running 15 PSI front and rear, and that seems to be right about in the sweet spot. They're pretty stiff because they're made for a much heavier vehicle, but 15 pounds seem to do pretty good on the chalk test, and it handles nicely. Another thing I did before the show was replace all the tie rod ends. They're from Willys as well, and I put a new drag link, so that's got the non-replaceable end on the pitman arm side, and then the regular tie rod on this side. So the main tie rod was in good shape, but this little drag link had a ton of wear here, so I wanted that replaced before we started putting miles on it. So I got that all done, and it handles and tracks really nice. The power steering is amazing, and just a pleasure to drive. Another thing I did was I kind of completely forgot I never made shock mounts for it. So the frame had CJ5 shock mounts on top, and then I made brackets for the axle side up front. That was pretty easy, and then in the back had to get a little more creative because the original mounts wouldn't work at all, so I got CJ3A mounts, and they attached to the frame here, and then made brackets on the lower side, and it actually rides pretty good. A little bit of extra wheelbase. Springs are a little stiff. They were new, so I think they'll settle in over time, but overall worked out quite well. I also added these brass footman loops to the fender. My bed is really small, so when we go camping, you can put a sleeping bag or your tent or whatever and strap it on there. I also added footman loops on the bed so I can do a cargo net, and I kind of put some stuff in the bed. I had a cooler back here, and then all my little recovery tools and emergency stuff, fire extinguisher and air compressor, things like that. I also added these footman loops on the tailgate, just like a regular Jeep, except I went with these. They're from Weaver leather. I never liked the original footman loops because you can't get a ratchet strap or a larger bungee cord with the plastic ends. And these are, while they are narrower, they're much taller, and you can actually fit like a Harbor Freight strap, or the cargo nets with the plastic hooks. They fit through those. And I did loops on the other side as well. I went all out with the brass. I like brass, and it just kind of fits the vibe of this truck. Another thing I wanted to address was the hood. A lot of people are freaking out because there's no hood on it right now. But we're going for the hot rod look here for now. I'm not making any bold statement that I'm definitely going to run a hood or not run a hood. Just go watch Roadkill for a while. Calm down. There's no hood on it. We're all going to survive. Here's another little modernized feature I added. So I have a power outlet here to charge things or run any kind of 12-volt device. And then over here, this has a USB and USB-C charger and a little voltmeter on there as well. So I know it's not period correct, but it's handy to have sometimes. I also needed to have mirrors to be street legal and just for convenience. So I actually stole this mirror out of the TDI Jeep because I just didn't have one that I liked. I don't like them when they're mounted to the glass. So this was just a screw-on deal. So a couple little brass screws, and I'll find a better replacement for the blue Jeep. Windshield worked great. I was really impressed with how little air comes through this gap. I thought it was going to be annoying and cold and hit you right in the face, but the angle of the glass when it's in the locked position must be just enough that it kind of directs it all away, and my wife and I didn't really notice any problems with that. I think if you had a full cab on, you might feel it more, but there's so much air coming in here anyway that you really didn't notice. We finished the seats right in the nick of time. My wife helped me with the covers. I couldn't have done it without her. And they have the hip pads here, and then the front and back seat. And one of our favorite features of the week was having these heated seats. It was pretty warm, so we really didn't need them too much, but in the morning, or if you just wanted to warm up a little bit, it made it so nice. So the elements go across the bottom, and you can see the wires here a little bit, and then they go up lengthwise in the back. So that made a huge difference, and it was really quite comfortable. This makes an awesome armrest. The low-profile Willys or Kaiser Willys steering wheel gives you lots of tummy room, and my pedal layout and shifters, everything felt surprisingly good, and this thing tracks down the road really nice. For side view mirrors, I just grabbed some Amazon specials, and they actually turned out really good. They're a little bit bigger than a Willys steering wheel, or a Willys mirror, I'm sorry. I didn't really want the factory longer bracket. I haven't had great luck with those, and I just wanted to do something a little bit different. I had this nice flat spot right here. They have a good field of view. I can see both sides easily from the driver's seat, and for trail duty, they fold completely out of the way very easily, and I tried to keep them nice and tight so it's as close to the actual cab as you need it to be. I also had to do a lot of little things that took a lot of time that I wasn't really planning for. Was that this has been apart and back together so many times, I really had to do a safety inspection on the entire vehicle. So jack it up, go through all the bearings, the U-bolt bolts, the shackles, make sure all the axle hardware and spacers, everything was torqued and Loctited, and also the steering system. This had just all been mocked up, so I had to torque and Loctite everything and just put a few miles on it and then jack it back up and check over everything. Safety is really important on this type of project because it takes so long. You might not remember that, oh, I got to tighten that bolt, or I got to put this strap in, or whatever. So it took quite a bit of time, but obviously that's super important that you know your vehicle's safe and ready to roll before you take it out on the road. And another thing that was kind of on my would like to have list but didn't have to be done was some sort of a cover. I just wanted a little bikini top so that at night, my Jeep's on the trailer or sitting in the field, that the seats didn't get completely soaked, and also having a little bit of shade and wind protection made a big difference. So I had these little brass fasteners left over from another project, and I was trying to stick with brass as much as I could. So I sewed up a little bikini top, and this was in the 11th hour, right before basically the night before we were packing to go, and it actually turned out pretty good. It did its job all weekend, and just was nice to have a little bit of cover, and I think it really kind of gives the Jeep a more finished look, a little bit of a roof on. So it has a little flap with toggles to keep the middle from flapping, and then a little strap with a footman loop on the bar, a little more brass, and that works pretty good. So eventually I'll probably fine tune it. I have a little extra fabric there as it's stretched, and I kept tightening it. And I don't know if I'll ever make a full cab for it or not, but it definitely did the job, and it's pretty quiet and stationary when you're driving down the road. This was another cool feature that was on the would like to have it done list. One of my Instagram followers, Red Rover Parts, made this data plate for me. So it's pretty cool, manufactured by Red Eye Garage, has the build number and all the specs, the weight, the wheelbase, all that stuff. So it's kind of modeled after the Willys Navy Jeep plate that I have in the rotary Jeep, and he did just an awesome job, and I think it really adds to the build. Another item that a follower provided for me was this awesome shift knob. Matches the Jeep really well. That was made by Martin Shapes. He does surfboards, and with the leftover resin, he makes shift knobs. So really honored that he made one just for my Jeep, and it feels and looks awesome. Here's a little view of the back with the finished product. So I added the mud flaps. I don't think you guys saw them yet. I'm a big fan of mud flaps, especially vintage looking ones. I think it really provides a cool finishing touch, and it's also practical. Keeps the rocks off the guy behind you and the mud off of your Jeep, especially with this wider setup I'm running. So I still have to get some front flaps and maybe add those flares and finish it off. But overall, I think it really made it look like an old truck, makes it look finished, and provides some protection. So let me know what you think there. For the lights, I just went with stock CJ tail lights. I have a whole basket full of them, so I always have replacement lenses and bulbs on hand. And I think it really came together nice and pops with that blue and brass and black. I think it looks pretty snazzy. My fuel gauge worked well throughout the trip, so I've got the little brass sight glasses down there. You can just kind of grab the roll bar, give it a shake, and you get a rough idea where the fuel level is. You can also just look in there. Just don't use a match to see. She's a thirsty girl though. I haven't really checked it yet. I put 10 gallons of fuel in here, and it filled it up to, I would call this like the 3/4 line, and we drove about 130 miles total over the weekend, and it's down to, I would say, just below, like it's in the middle of that lower sight glass, so there's probably only like 2 gallons left. So I'll figure out the economy once I start driving it more. I would say this will hold about 15 gallons if I filled it all the way to the top, but it's definitely not a fuel sipper like the TDI, but that's okay. We didn't build it for economy. So I think that's it on the Jeep updates from last time you saw it. Let me know if you saw something as I'm walking around that I forgot to talk about. But it ran great. It started perfectly every time. The temp was at 160, no matter what I was doing with it. And I think the coolest thing for me was just leave it in fourth gear as the group slows us down and speeds up. And I just always had enough power, even down to like 15 miles an hour in fourth gear, and just it would just kind of chug up from there. So very different experience from an L head or the rotary, needing that RPM and shifting. This thing just chugged along. So really happy with the 250 Chevy 6-cylinder. I thought I would be, but I really hadn't had any personal experience with it. But just nice and smooth. It revs out good, but also makes tons of power down low, which is just what I was looking for with this old truck. The exhaust is quiet, but has a nice rumble to it, especially when you're just putting along, and just really pleased overall. Super simple. I took extra points and a cap and rotor and stuff like that with me, just in case, but it just ran like a champ all weekend, which was relief because I had no idea. This was just a marketplace motor. I think I paid $300 for it or something like that, and had good oil pressure, didn't smoke, so I think it's going to be a good runner. All right, enough yapping and Jeep talk. Sit back and enjoy. I'm going to play you some clips from the weekend. They're self-explanatory. It's a great show. I have many videos. If you go back to every October on my channel, there'll be a Mason Dixon Willys show video on there. So some of them are more detailed, but I'm just going to put some highlights in here and let you enjoy the ride. So once again, thanks for watching. Thanks for the support on this project. Let me know if you want to see anything else specific. I will continue to work on it, but right now I just need a break from the shop. So we'll be moving on to other things soon. But for now, enjoy these clips and catch you later.
Yeah, and they got a little more.
Pretty good.
Yeah. Or the came over the Beverly. I did.